I want to talk to you today about something that might sound simple at first, eyebrows. But what I've learned over all these years, working with thousands of women, is that nothing is ever as simple as it seems. There's a language hidden in the shape of a brow. There's a kind of quiet architecture that holds a face together. And when you understand it, when you really see it, everything changes. Today, I'm going to walk you through the actual process I use, not the surface level stuff you see in tutorials, the real work, the analysis, the decisions, the moments where you pause and think, is this right for her? Not for some abstract ideal, but for this person, sitting in front of me, trusting me with her face. We'll talk about skin, about hair, about why wax matters and paste matters, and why a gel-based dye behaves differently than you'd expect. We'll go through each stage, one by one, and I'll try to show you what I'm actually thinking when I work. But here's the thing, the most important part, the part that really changes everything, I'm saving that for the end. Because it's not about technique, it's about something deeper, something I only understood after years of watching women look at themselves in the mirror and realizing they'd been waiting to feel like this all along. So stay with me, I promise it'll be worth it. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. If this resonates with you, if you feel like there's value in hearing a real practitioner speak, not someone trying to sell you a course, just someone who's been doing this work for a very long time, please hit that like button, subscribe. Because I'm going to keep making these and I want to know you're listening. And truly, the best part is coming at the very end. So don't leave early. The insight I'm about to share in the final minutes, that's the one that matters most. All right, let's begin. Stage 1. Analysis. Every time a woman sits down in my chair, I start the same way. I look. I don't touch anything yet. I just look. And I know that sounds obvious, but most people skip this part. They go straight to the tweezers, straight to the shape they have in their head. But that's not how it works. Not if you want something real. I'm looking at her skin first. Is it oily, dry, sensitive? Does it react easily? Because everything I do after this depends on what I see right now. If the skin is delicate, I can't be aggressive with the wax. If it's oily, the dye is going to behave differently. If there's any irritation, any redness, I have to adjust my whole approach. Then I look at the hair itself, the structure. Is it coarse or fine? Does it grow in one direction or does it spiral? Are there gaps where the hair just doesn't grow anymore? And here's what most people don't understand. You can't impose a shape that the hair won't support. You have to work with what's there. You have to listen to it. I also look at her face, the proportions, the distance between her eyes, the width of her forehead, the way her features balance or don't balance. Because the brow is not a separate thing. It's part of a whole. And if I ignore that, if I just follow some trend I saw online, it's not going to look right. It's going to look like I put someone else's eyebrows on her face. This analysis, this quiet looking, it takes maybe 2 minutes. But it's the foundation. Without it, nothing else works. Stage 2, correction with wax and tweezers. Once I understand what I'm working with, I start the correction. And I use both wax and tweezers because they do different things. Wax is fast, it's efficient. It removes a lot of hair at once, and it gives me a clean line. But it's also blunt. You can't be delicate with wax, so I use it for the areas where I know exactly what needs to go, the space between the brows, the outer edges, the places where there's no question. But here's where it gets more interesting. After the wax, I switch to tweezers, because tweezers let me think. They let me pause between each hair and ask myself, does this one stay or does it go? And that's the part that matters. That's where the real shaping happens. One hair at a time, one small decision at a time. I see so many people who just rip everything out and then try to rebuild the shape with makeup. And it works, I guess, for a few hours. But it's not sustainable. It's not real. What I'm doing is creating a base that can stand on its own. So that even without any product, the brow has a form. It has integrity. And yes, this takes longer. Yes, it requires focus. But that's the difference between something that looks good in a photo and something that looks good when you wake up in the morning. Stage 3, architecture with paste. Now we move into the part that a lot of people find confusing, the paste. And I'll be honest, this is where I see the most mistakes, because paste is not the same as wax. It's not the same as threading. It's its own thing, and you have to understand what it's doing. What paste does, and this is key, is it adds volume without adding aggression. It lifts the hair. It removes the fine, almost invisible hairs that are creating shadow or texture where you don't want it, but it does it gently. It doesn't strip the skin. It doesn't leave irritation. I use it to refine the shape, to bring out the natural arch, to create a kind of softness at the edges. Because a brow that's too sharp, too defined, it doesn't look real. It looks drawn on. And that's not what we're going for. We're going for something that looks like it belongs to her, like it's always been there, just slightly better. But here's what most people miss. Paste only works if the prep work is right. If I haven't done the analysis correctly, if I haven't removed the right hairs with the tweezers, the paste isn't going to fix it. It's not magic. It's just the final layer of a very deliberate process. And this is where I start to see the shape come together. This is where I step back and think, okay, yes, this is starting to feel right, but we're not done yet. I know I'm going into detail here, and maybe some of this feels technical, but I want you to understand the thought process, the care, because that's what separates real craftsmanship from just following steps. If you're still with me, if this is making sense, leave a comment. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me if you've ever had your brows done and felt like something was missing. I read every comment, I really do, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because we're about to get to the part that ties everything together. Stage 4, gel dye application. The final technical stage is the dye, and I use a gel-based formula, specifically OKO, because it behaves in a way that other dyes don't. It's more controlled. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't stain the skin too aggressively. And most importantly, it enhances the natural color of the hair without overpowering it. I apply it carefully, not in one thick layer, but in stages. I want the color to build gradually. I want it to look like her brow just happens to be this rich, this defined, not like I painted it on. And here's the thing about gel dye. It clings to each individual hair. So even the fine, light hairs that you could barely see before, they become visible. They become part of the structure. And that's what creates the fullness, the depth, the sense that this brow is complete. I leave it on for the exact amount of time it needs. Not longer, not shorter. Because timing matters. Too little and the color doesn't take. Too much and it looks artificial. It's a small window, and you have to pay attention. When I remove the dye, that's the moment. That's when I see if everything I've done up to this point has worked. And most of the time, it has. Because I've been careful. Because I've been thinking the whole way through. But that's still not the most important part. Not yet, the bigger picture. So now you understand the process, the analysis, the correction, the paste, the dye. 4 stages, each one deliberate, each one building on the last. But let me tell you what I've learned over all these years. What I've really learned, it's not about perfect symmetry. It's not about following some golden ratio. It's not even about the technique, as important as technique is. It's about seeing the person in front of you, really seeing her, understanding what she's asking for, even if she doesn't have the words. Understanding what will make her feel like herself, but more confident, more at ease, more present. Because I've had women sit in my chair and tell me, I just want to look put together. And what they mean is, I want to feel like I'm enough. I want to stop thinking about this one small thing that's been bothering me for years. And that's not something you can fix with wax and dye alone. That's something you fix by listening, by caring, by doing the work slowly and thoughtfully and with respect for the person who's trusting you. I've watched thousands of women look at themselves after I've finished, and there's a moment, a very specific moment where something shifts. They don't say anything at first, they just look, and then sometimes they smile, or they exhale, or they say something quiet like, "Oh, that's me," and that's the whole point, not to make them look like someone else, not to give them a trend that'll be gone in 6 months, but to help them see themselves more clearly, to remove the small distractions, the small asymmetries, the small doubts, so that what's left is just them, just their face, just their presence. This is the part I wanted to save for the end, because it's easy to talk about technique, it's easy to explain steps, but this feeling of recognition, of alignment, that's what the work is actually for. And I think a lot of people in this industry forget that. They get caught up in trends, in speed, in volume. And I understand why, but I can't work that way. I've tried. It doesn't feel right. The transformation I'm talking about, it's not loud. It's not dramatic. No one's going to stop you on the street and say, "Wow, your eyebrows are amazing." That's not how it works. But you'll notice. You'll notice when you look in the mirror and you're not immediately drawn to that one thing that used to bother you. You'll notice when you put on makeup and it goes on easier, faster because the base is already there. You'll notice when you're in a meeting or on a date or just walking through your day and you feel a little bit more like yourself. That's the transformation. That's what good work does. It's quiet, it's internal, but it's real. And I've seen it happen so many times now that I know it's not a coincidence. I know that when you take the time to do something right, when you pay attention, when you care, the person feels it. They carry it with them. People sometimes ask me, after all these years, why do you still care so much? Why do you still spend this much time on something so small? And the answer is, because it's not small. Not to the person sitting in front of me, not to the woman who's been plucking her own brows for 20 years and hating the result, not to the person who's never felt quite comfortable in her own face. To them, it matters. And so it matters to me. I didn't get into this work to become famous or to build a brand. I got into it because I liked the precision, the care, the quiet satisfaction of making something better. And that hasn't changed. Every person is different. Every face is different. Every brow is different. And that means I never stop learning. I never stop adjusting. I never stop thinking, is there a better way to do this? And that's what keeps me here. That's what keeps me interested. So that's the process. That's how I work. From the first moment of analysis to the final brush of dye. Every step connected, every step purposeful. But more than that, I hope you see now why I talk about this the way I do. Why I don't just list steps. Why I try to explain the thinking behind the work. Because craftsmanship, real craftsmanship, it's not about following a formula. It's about understanding principles deeply enough that you can adapt them. It's about respecting the person in front of you enough to slow down, to think, to care, and that's true for any work, not just this. But this is the work I know. This is the work I've dedicated my life to, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for every woman who's trusted me, every transformation I've been part of, every quiet moment of recognition. If you've stayed with me this whole time, thank you. Truly, I know this was detailed. I know it wasn't flashy, but I hope it gave you something, a sense of what real work looks like, a sense of what's possible when you take the time to do it right. And if it did, if this resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe, share it with someone who might need to hear it, because I'm going to keep making these. I'm going to keep talking about the work, the real work, the kind that changes how people feel about themselves. And I want you here with me. I want to keep this conversation going.